Hi everyone, I'm Courtney. I'm the Campus Health Promoter, and we are doing our YOU101 event virtually. I want to introduce to you our YOU101 group, and without further ado, here's Dr. Beverly Cassidy.
Nice to see you out there. I am a psychiatrist and health advisor to YOU101 at Acadia, a mental health promotion project. And today we're reaching out to you virtually here in Acadia's beautiful garden room solarium. So if you hear some sound in the background, it's the water that's trickling down the rock. I think you know the one I mean. And so whether you are at home, whether you're still on campus, or somewhere else in the world right now, just welcome. We hope you can see and feel a bit of the calm energy that's here among the beautiful plants, ferns and moss here in the solarium. And a special welcome to you if you have never attended a YOU101 event. I'd like to thank Courtney Sheedy. She's our amazing Acadia health educator, and she is still at the helm here, doing an amazing job thinking about how we can creatively stay connected during this time. Today we are online to share some myths and facts about the science of well-being, and of course some ideas to stay healthy emotionally during this challenging time. To participate at your end, you're going to need a pen and a piece of paper for yourself and a comfortable spot to sit for the next 30 minutes approximately. So now I'd like you just to see if you can take those few moments to get settled in, get a spot where you're comfortable. And while you do that, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Kerr. She's one of our amazing YOU101 student leaders, and she's going to co-present with me today on ideas to optimize your mental health and resilience over the next few weeks. Jenny, do you want to just come and give everybody a wave?
Sure.
Hi, everybody. We're going to miss Jennifer and Stephen Wilton, our two student leads, so much, and really want to thank them for all they've done in the last 2 years to support mental health at Acadia. They're both graduating, so congratulations to them. But if any of you are not graduating this year and would like to be part of YOU101 next year, now is the perfect time to email Courtney at courtney.sheedy@acadiau.ca and join our mental health promotion team. Acadia YOU101 will need and want you to stay strong. So on our next slide here, we're going to show you a roadmap for this presentation today. We're going to be looking at how to build self-knowledge, knowing what your own feelings are and recognizing your own strengths. And I think we often tend to know what our own weaknesses and vulnerabilities are, but we're going to focus today a bit on your strengths. Also, we're going to talk about developing a personal resilience plan, how to make space for self-care for yourself in a deliberate way over the next weeks and months. We're also going to take time to ask what are those key ingredients of well-being, and help you to review some of the resources to help you build this online and in person if you need some extra support along the way. So the next slide shows us building self-knowledge and what are the essential building blocks for well-being. A key piece of emotional intelligence and our health is building self-knowledge, and especially knowing our own feelings. Learning to know ourselves is a lot like a journey that lasts a lifetime. So here, this is kind of like a world map of ourselves and others and our relationships, but getting to know ourselves first is a really important part of looking after yourself. And there's really quite a bit of terrain to cover. Some of it's pretty tricky to navigate, so it's quite good to have a map. And today we're going to start with some guideposts and just start by asking how you are feeling today, checking in with yourself. Right now, it's completely normal to be feeling anxious or sad or uncertain about pretty well anything, actually. It's quite an unusual time right now. So today we're going to slow things down here in the solarium and wherever you are. To do this, I'd like you to get as comfortable as you can wherever you are. And just take a few slow, deep breaths. Slowly in and slowly out. See if you can notice the temperature of your breath as it goes in and as you release it. But now if you can notice any tension in your eyes, tension in your jaw, in your neck, in the back of your head, see if you can release it. And now readjust your posture and just get comfortable. See if you can release any tension in your arms and let go as much of that physical body tension as you can. And now I'd like you to ask yourself, what do I feel today in this moment? Whatever those feelings are, I'd like you just to let them be heard in your own mind without judgment. There is no right or wrong here, but a key step to looking after yourself emotionally is knowing that what you feel is okay and just gently making room for those feelings. When you feel ready, I'm going to invite you to just take the next few moments to actually write down what it is you feel. So, yeah, we'll just pause here for about a minute, and when you're ready, just write down for yourself what you actually feel now. So this next slide shows some of what you might be feeling. Are you feeling anxious or confused about finishing the term, about grades, about the world, about family and friends, about getting home, or about being at home, or about not having anywhere to go, or about your health, or family and friends' health, about your career or graduating in the future, about finance, or about whether you can handle all this. Breathe into whatever you feel right now and acknowledge that you're perfectly entitled to all of your feelings, including any or all of the above. And if you don't feel any of these things, that's fine too. We're each different, and I think that's the point, that just knowing who you are and acknowledging how you feel is a great place to start when you want to look after yourself. As far as anxiety goes, this next slide here shows you a depiction of what was going on back 30,000 years ago. We come pretty honestly by our anxiety, and especially anxiety in challenging times. These paintings are from the Chauvet caves in southern France, and what they show here is that just staying alive has been a pretty tough job and kind of a human preoccupation for about 30,000 years. We are wired with a sympathetic nervous system that gets activated into fight and flight whenever danger's around, and back then danger was around every corner. For example, this image of on the caves might have been just getting lunch, and as you can see by the second human figure, you had to do that from a pretty young age. I don't know how old that little second character is there, but maybe like 7 or 8 even, out with a bow and arrow, perhaps to try to gather lunch. So even the very basics required a very reactive nervous system, and that average life expectancy back then even with a really awesome nervous system, was about 35 years or less in Paleolithic times. So we come by this really honestly. This next slide is about making space. And so whatever your feelings are, we're trying to, in the next few days, next weeks, make space for them every day. And I'd like you to practice making space in your mind and in your body, and using your breath to help you make room for feelings, because they are entirely natural. And really the gift of our fast-running ancestors who faced that significant danger and risk every day. This slide of the self is also to acknowledge that self-knowledge is also about recognizing other parts of ourselves, including our strengths, and to be able to use them to help you along life's path, especially when the going gets rough. So now, underneath what you've already written about how you're feeling, I'd like you to take time to reflect on what you'd consider to be 3 of your greatest personal strengths. And again, we're going to take about a minute to do this, so get comfortable in your body. Maybe take again a few deep breaths to center your mind, and write down 3 of your strengths. So what are your strengths? Kindness? Are you good at problem solving? Are you generous? Persistent in the face of a challenge? Are you reliable? Do you try to be honest? Are you good at connecting with friends or with others? Are you good at organizing? It's really nice to know what our strengths are, and to remind ourselves about that every day so we can make use of those strengths. And if you're not sure what your own strengths are, just ask your friends or your family, because they'll very likely know. Or you could take some time online, since we're kind of online a little bit more these days, to find out. And you can take this survey of character strengths that you can see the link for here on this slide. It was developed by Dr. Martin Seligman, who's kind of like the grandfather of positive psychology in North America, and he's developed this quiz to help us identify what our real strengths are, our top strengths, so that we can try to incorporate them into our lives. And that seems to be a really important thing to do if we want to feel well. So this next slide of the Inukshuk is about developing a personal resilience plan that's based on knowing our feelings and our strengths, so that we can just make the best use of them. Resilience is about that ability to survive and to bounce back in the face of hardship, and perhaps even to thrive sometimes in those bad and difficult conditions. Resilience isn't just a static quality that you either have or don't have. It's a capacity that you can cultivate. And like physical fitness, mental and emotional fitness can have components of flexibility and strength that we can work on over the course of our lives. This slide shows some of the key ingredients of resilience. So the first is self-awareness, and that is about making space to notice what we feel and think. It's also about optimism, not of a rose-colored glasses variety where you don't notice the problems around you, but making space to notice our own strengths and what's good in other people as well. What's meaningful, even in situations of distress. A third and important factor in resilience is cognitive flexibility, that ability to focus on what's changeable in challenging situations, and to shift our focus away from ruminating about the things that we can't change. So now we're going to try to incorporate these ingredients that we've been talking about into what I'm going to call your own compassionate personal statement. And this is like the ingredients in your backpack, the essential things that you want to have on any voyage or any trip. So if we're thinking about looking after yourself in the next days, I'd really like you to consider cultivating a personal statement for yourself, because it's been shown by Dr. Kristen Neff, who studies compassion and how we speak to ourselves, to have quite a significant impact on our mood. And it's quite helpful to prevent depression and to prevent relapse of depression and to help us stay well. So if you can, you could use this sort of a template and fill in with your own answers. I'm allowing myself to feel, and I'm making space for those feelings today. I'm also making space to notice my strengths and what I can do today. I'm wishing myself well today. So this kind of a self-compassion statement, that's a template you can use, is a way of kind of becoming your own best friend in this situation. It's a way of speaking kindly and gently to yourself to help you bring out the best in yourself and to stay strong. In terms of building your personal fitness, there's a few other areas that we wanted to touch on, and this slide shows you a few of the steps that are important. So we've already covered step 1, which is recognizing feelings, strengths, and knowing your vulnerabilities and helping to build your wellness plan. This also includes your personal statement that you're going to use to try to support yourself when you're having a tough time, and even just to start the day. Then we're also going to talk about appreciating some of the science of well-being and what is normal and not normal in how we're feeling. So sadness versus depression, or anxiety feelings versus anxiety disorders. And after I cover that, then Jennifer's going to take over and talk a little bit about how to build your support networks, making sure you know who has your back, and also noticing feelings in others and thinking about strategies that you can use to troubleshoot and support each other, and to review some of the myths about what will help us stay well as some of the science of what helps us stay well. So in this slide, I'm just going to highlight a little bit about sadness versus depression and anxiety feelings versus anxiety disorder. And I guess what I would emphasize is that any feeling state or any behavior that's regularly interfering with your ability to function either in work or in studies or in love with your relationships or in your ability just to relax and unwind and play is really worth thinking about and working on, because anything that's regularly interfering, you'd like to take care of if you can. And that's sort of the difference between having sad feelings or anxious feelings and something becoming a disorder, is when it regularly interferes on a longer term basis and it's causing you a significant amount of distress each day. And in other people, what should you look for if you're worrying about anyone? If you notice significant changes in someone you love or care about's mood or behavior, if you feel someone is in trouble, it's very reasonable just to reach out and to ask, is there anything going on that you could help with, or making sure people know that you have their back in some way. If it's something more serious, there are other resources, and Jennifer Kerr is going to take over now and share some of the resources with you about what's available online and in person to help you stay emotionally strong and healthy over the next few months. And she's also going to talk about some of the ways our mind actually plays tricks on us and what the research really tells us about what can genuinely make us feel happier and more satisfied in our lives. And some of the answers may surprise you. Jennifer.
Hi everybody. So to start off, the slide that you're on right now should show you some resources that are really important during this time. So Dr. Kristen Neff has a website that is called www.selfcompassion.org, and that includes strategies for emotional self-care. Also the student wellness app that was developed by me and Courtney at YOU101. That can be found on the Fountain of Health website. That has useful mental health links and online yoga, mindfulness resources, among other things. And on campus, there's the Acadia Counseling Center, Acadia Student Health as well, and Courtney Sheedy, Acadia's Health Promoter and YOU101 Coordinator. Then all these things, all these resources, they have your back during this very trying time. But it's also good to learn to become your own best coach, and there are plenty of resources available. So on slide 21, we are going to talk about discovering the science of well-being online, since we're, more online these days. So an online course by Yale professor Dr. Laurie Santos is a free course you can do on your own time and full of evidence-based information on how to build emotional resilience and well-being. And The How of Happiness by happiness researcher Dr. Sonia Libromirsky is kind of a quick tour through some of the highlights on how our mind can play tricks with us about what really adds to our sense of well-being. So the science of well-being, what makes up happiness? Kindness and generosity, states of flow, and social connection are the 3 points that I will be covering today. So what is happiness in your life? Dr. Sonia Libromirsky is considered to be a happiness expert, and she defines happiness as feeling good in your life and with your life, frequent positive emotions such as joy, affection, pride, and love, and that you are living a life that is worthwhile and meaningful. So now that we have a definition of happiness, how do we get it? Sonia Libromirsky, in her book, The How of Happiness, breaks down the ingredients to happiness, and the measurements may surprise you. On this slide, you'll see a pie chart, and her research shows that 50% of our happiness comes from our genes. So we all have a set point or the tendency to see the glass half full or half empty. What about our environment? Outside of extreme circumstances such as chronic abuse, failure to have your basic needs met, etc., only 10% of well-being appears to be attributable to environmental factors. And then this leaves 40%, which falls under the umbrella of intentional activity. But this includes our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, which is within our control. Right now, we have quite exceptional circumstances, so that 10%, depending on environmental factors, might be quite a bit more, depending on what's happening for us. If we don't have those things, then that 10% might be much larger if our basic needs aren't being met. Another interesting finding from her research is that the average person has a completely morphed version of this pie. What we tend to do is chase environmental changes to our lives, thinking it will make us happier, when in fact there is a lot of research showing the opposite. But if our basic needs are taken care of right now, then the good news is that 40% of our happiness level is dictated by intentional activity and hence under our own control. The bad news is that in general, we don't have an accurate view of what increases happiness levels, and often what we think will make us happier, in fact, can do the opposite or have no impact on happiness at all. Let's challenge this idea that our life circumstances don't have a long-lasting impact on our happiness. What is one of the most dramatic and positive things that can happen to you? Something that millions dream and bet on every week. So, researchers in Illinois in the 1970s interviewed lottery winners and found that only 1 year after winning, their happiness levels were no different than the group who didn't win. In fact, the lottery winners noticed that they experienced less enjoyment from ordinary day-to-day activities compared to the non-winners. Or making the grade. We are in a world of constant evaluation and external rewards, especially as students. Getting the A might boost your mood in the short term, but it will come at a cost. It can rob you of the enjoyment in your studies or career. It turns out that when tasks were assigned grades, they found that students reported higher levels of anxiety, less enjoyment, and actually performed worse. Grades have been shown to undermine students' interest in learning and lead students to avoid more challenging tasks. When graded, students are more likely to ask, "Will this be on a test?" than to say, "How do we know this is true?" Also, when it comes to marriage, although there were individual differences, on average, people experienced a happiness boost for 2 years after marriage, followed by a return towards baseline levels. There are many other examples like these ones. In fact, when we imagine a good outcome and we predict how happy it will make us, we tend to always over-predict. This is what researchers call an outcome bias. Happiness has been compared to exercise. It is not enough to know it will help, you need to do it. It is effortful. Being happy is similar. You need to put in consistent time and effort. There is a lot of research in this area, but I'm going to focus on the 3 things previously mentioned: kindness and generosity, states of flow, and social connection. You can see that the first 2 are both possible to achieve whether or not there is a COVID virus pandemic. Adults from around the world report higher levels of happiness when spending money on others than when spending money on themselves. Giving money to charity activates regions of the brain associated with processing rewards, such as the nucleus accumbens. Benefits of giving really spiked when there was a connection with those they were giving to. You need to be able to envision how your dollars are going to make a difference. There have been similar findings in toddlers by a Canadian researcher in British Columbia named Elizabeth Dunn. They don't care about money, of course, since they're babies. Their most precious commodity is goldfish crackers. So while researchers coded the kids' emotional reactions, the toddlers met a puppet, which was a monkey, and they were pretty happy when they received a bowl of goldfish crackers. They were also pretty happy with their lot, but even happier when they got to give the fish away. Interestingly, they were most happy when they gave away one of their own crackers as opposed to one of the examiner's crackers. Children are happier after engaging in costly giving, forfeiting their own resources, than when giving the same treat at no cost. Perhaps an argument that giving and generosity is part of our human nature. Flow states are the next thing on the list. So flow states are a mental state of complete absorption. This quote explains flow states a little better. So the best moments of our lives are not the passive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. Fortunately, flow states are states we can achieve on our own, whether with books or online. So the next kind of piece I'll go into is about the default mode network, which is a set of intertwined structures in our brain in the medial prefrontal cortex, the medial parietal cortex, and the medial temporal cortex that are active when our brain is not active. So sounds kind of strange, but when we are resting and not involved in any attentional task, these areas of the brain light up and start to make you think about your future actions, daydream, revisit old memories, or just narrate out your own day. This network is what allows you to self-reflect, self-criticize, and ruminate on the past. This system is crucial to allowing us to think about time and ourselves in the future or the past, which adds to our self-identity, gives us the ability to imagine mental states in other people, which is very important for being empathetic and moral reasoning as well. But there can be a downside to the overusage of this default mode network. Ruminating too much can lead us down a dark spiral into overthinking everything we do, and that itself becomes a big distraction. I know I have gone down this rabbit hole a few times, and it can take a big push to pull yourself out, but after learning the neural mechanisms of this state of mind, I felt calmer knowing that there are ways our brain works to combat these fluctuations. So when you are resting, your brain is still quite active, either thinking about your day, what you just did, or what you will do next. Ways in which we can move ourselves out of using our default mode network are things such as spending time in nature, talking with a friend or a family member, reading, or even studying. So what helps you get in the zone? When do you find you lose track of time? When does something absorb you so much it's the only thing you are thinking about? If you thought of something while answering those questions, that may be a good activity to do while in this state of the world. Robert Waldinger at Harvard studies adult development and had possibly the longest study on adults ever done. It was over 75 years long, asking about home life, work life, and health. He tracked the lives of two different groups of men, freshmen at Harvard and young men from some of the poorest neighborhoods in Boston. What have they learned? Good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Loneliness kills. Less happy, physical health declines earlier, brain function declines sooner, and ultimately they live shorter lives when they're more lonely. Good relationships protect our health both physically and cognitively. It wasn't the presence of vascular risk factors, a substance use disorder, money, or fame, but the quality of their relationships that best predicted how they were going to grow old. And the quality is key. A sense that you have someone in your life that will support you and be in your corner when the going gets tough is the most important. From a well-being perspective, the director of the study, Robert Waldinger, summarized it best. The people who were the most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. So the adult development study from Harvard tells us the quality relationships in our lives are the key. What about other types of social connection? In general, social psychological research tends to show that the more we connect with the people in our lives, the happier we are. The funny thing is that we sometimes think talking to people will make us less happy. Imagine you're on a bus or a plane and a stranger sits down next to you and starts talking. Most people think that their travel will go more smoothly if they just keep to themselves, do their own thing, and maybe catch up on some work. A group of researchers designed an interesting experiment with people commuting on a train ride to work. The first group was asked to sit in solitude, the second group was asked to ride the train as they usually do, and the third group was asked to make a connection with a stranger on the train. They found that commuters had significantly more positive experiences when they were asked to form a connection with a stranger on the train. Not only did they feel as though they had a more pleasant commute, but they felt better overall. And they didn't feel like they were any less productive. This is an interesting finding because it's a different type of social connection compared to the first study. And there's so much opportunity for this type in our daily lives. Maybe not at this point, but once everything is back to normal, there are these opportunities every day. How can we stay connected now? Get out for walks, runs, any outdoor activity where you retain a 6 foot or 2 meter radius from others, which is the safe social distancing practice. It is also almost biking season. You can reach out to friends over the phone and virtually, form group chats with friends to stay connected in that way. You can stay connected to well-being with the Smart Thinking Acadia Instagram feed, which is linked in the slides. And think about how you can overcome the challenge of necessary social distancing while staying connected to the people and things that matter to you. If you have had any great ideas about this whole social distancing practice and how to stay connected, feel free to share it with us through Courtney's email or through the Smart Thinking Acadia Instagram. Thank you for listening to our presentation. I hope you enjoyed and it calmed your nerves a little more.